Hi, I'm James Lee, here to talk about two of Nassim Taleb's works, which are Fooled by Randomness and Black Swan. So, the overall idea is that people are not as good as they think they are at predicting things, and here's why Taleb calls it the scandal of prediction. See, the more information a person learns, the more they believe that they know everything, which in turn means that they know what's going to happen next. And truthfully, they're just more open to blind spots that don't fit their perception. Not even the author was able to escape that. But gurus, analysts, forecasters, and the like usually manage to get away with it by self serving memory and jargon. And in extreme cases, their insistence that they were lied to or that something else was afoot. Why does this happen? Well, because according to Taleb, there are two worlds in conflict: Mediocristan and Extremistan. Mediocristan is all about control and order. Even the most extreme cases are not considered impossible or incalculable. It makes predicting what will happen next all the easier for people. This mostly applies to tangible things like measurements, calories, the average income, and the society of yesteryear. Extremistan, aptly named as is about the extreme and unpredictable events most people can't imagine. Just because something happened today doesn't mean it'll happen tomorrow. Death, disaster, the income of authors and athletes, and the modern world in general fall into this category. Problems usually arise when an extremistan matter is mistaken for a Mediocristan one. Here are 6 fallacies and misconceptions that arise from such mistakes. Number 1, the Ludic fallacy, which is taken from ludish, the Greek word for games. The Ludic fallacy is when simulations with controlled variables are used to predict what would happen in real life, but games aren't really a substitute for reality, as they don't take every variable into account. Taleb gives a casino as his example. The casino's primary focus was to reduce losses due to players with extreme luck or skill. However, 4 of their biggest losses and near losses were things that they possibly couldn't imagine. Like, for example, a tiger suddenly attacking when it was proven to be docile beforehand. Another fallacy that arises, and number 2 on our list, is the narrative fallacy, where every bit of information or event should have some sort of backstory behind it. This makes it easier for a person to remember it. And this is a really funny example. Taleb talks about a fellow co-worker, or speaker in this case, who claimed to share his views on how there was no need to add reasoning to everything. But ironically, that speaker had to develop his own reason on why Taleb thought that. Number 3, survivorship bias, which is the logical error of concentrating on people or things that made it past some selection process and overlooking the ones who didn't because they're nowhere to be seen. Taleb uses 3 examples of this, but we're going to stick to one for brevity's sake. So there's this guy named Mark who's actually quite intelligent and successful, but to his wife, he's kind of sucks compared to the even more successful neighbors who live on Park Avenue. She doesn't see that Mark triumphed above his peers in high school because they're they're nowhere to be found. Number 4, the induction problem and black swans. So the induction problem is when specific bits of data are used to create the general world, and people tend to ignore the fact that said data is either incomplete or erroneous. Moreover, human memory and perception by itself is faulty because we may end up forgetting things or skewing them entirely. How does this tie into black swans? Well, consider the following 2 statements. No swan is black because I have looked at 4,000 swans and have found none, and not all swans are white. This first statement is kind of sketchy, as it's subject to my own experiences and perception, and could be easily contradicted. But for the second statement, all I need to prove this to be true is a picture of a black swan, one that obviously isn't done by Photoshop. Number 4. Number 5. Locke's definition of a madman, someone who provides airtight reasoning on the wrong premises. It's similar to the Ludic fallacy in that it's like a game or a simulation, where everything is within reason or controllable. Taleb ties this definition into a world created by elegant mathematics. emphasis on elegant, where everything is perfect, unambiguous in the eyes of its mathematician makers. But in order to make it that way, some aspects of reality had to be fudged to make it work, making the whole thing useless as a stand-in. And lastly, the bell curve and why Taleb considers it a great intellectual fraud. So the bell curve is a predictive model that determines the greatest time event X will happen, as well as when it'll start and stop happening. Taleb really dislikes this, as event X can really happen at any time. Moreover, the bell curve also ignores massive deviations that may not seem so bad on a sheet of paper, but could have serious consequences applied to the real world. And yet, people seem to take it anyways, thanks to their need for stability in such a changing environment. Plus, it makes them feel like they've made the uncertain certain. So, yeah, that's all I have to say on the matter. I hope I haven't bored you, and good night.